mail2, so you have an understanding of how it works with Tessitura to get you in a position to make some decisions to work on some next steps as you dive deeper into mail2. I call it onboarding for a reason because it's really kind of a combination of training and orientation, and really talking about one of the products that comes out of this session is what I call the punch list. It's really just kind of a mini project plan, and I sent one over with your welcome email. And what I'll do coming out of today's session is I'll kind of fill that in according to our discussion here today, kind of looking out into when you want to send your first email campaign, and kind of backfill some of the dates that are on there. And that punch list or mini project plan really becomes your next steps to going live, and we'll use that to kind of keep on task and refer to that. I'll refer to the punch list several times through the course of our discussion here today, and I'll say this will be on your punch list. This is an item on your punch list. Things like that. So that's kind of the overall purpose. That makes sense?
Yes. I have a punch list, and Natalia might, and I don't know if anyone else does, but that's okay for now.
Okay. Yep. Cool. I break the session out into two pieces. The first portion is really mostly around contact management, list management, and then we discuss how all that relates to Tessitura, and that gets you in a position to essentially get ready to populate mail2 with your existing email addresses, bring them over in an initial setup and an initial synchronization between mail2 and Tessitura. The second part is really focused on building email campaigns in the mail2 dashboard. What's it like to build one, orient you to the different templates that are available to you, how to manipulate those, how to save them off so you can reuse them, what's it like to send a campaign, and all that kind of stuff. So does that sound reasonable, those two broad pieces?
It does.
Okay, cool. I'm showing my screen now. I'm in my little test client dashboard. Your mail2 dashboard looks an awful lot like this. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
All right, cool. The resolution's okay?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Good. Okay, we're going to start out with kind of some definitions around contacts and lists and things like that, just to kind of get us rolling here. So, contacts. I'm old school. I'm painfully middle-aged, so I navigate everything from drop-down lists. So, if we're working on a call or you know, throughout the course of training on anything, if I say click on contacts, view all, I'm just talking through the click path in the drop-down menu. So, contacts. What's a contact? In mail2 terminology is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. A contact is an email address, and here's the key part. It's an email address that you have permission to send email marketing to. And when it comes to email marketing legislation here in the US and in Canada, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, any of the English-speaking countries in the world, email marketing regulations are all pretty much the same. They're very similar in their scope and what they deal with. In the U.S., those regulations are called CAN-SPAM regulations. It's an acronym. Don't ask me what it actually stands for, but it's CAN-SPAM. And when it comes to email marketing, there's two broad definitions of permission, having permission to email market to somebody, to a specific contact. There's what's called express consent or explicit consent, which is where somebody has truly opted in. They've said, yes, I want to be on your email marketing list. They've gone to your website, they've signed up. A box office person may have said, would you like to get on our email address, and they opt them in. To an email marketing list. So that's kind of explicit consent. There's another type of consent within CAN-SPAM regulations called implied consent. Implied consent is where an organization, and this is particularly true for nonprofits, where you have an existing business relationship with somebody. And in the case of a performing arts center, it's going to be ticket purchase, maybe volunteers, donors, that type of thing. So those types of existing relationships actually equal implied consent, which within the letter of the law allows you to put those email addresses on your email marketing list and send email marketing to them. The other big thing with email marketing, as far as legislation goes, you have to be able to provide people with the option to opt out or unsubscribe from receiving email marketing from you. So active contacts, again, basically it's an email address that you have permission to send email marketing to. Sound good so far?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Once you're up and running, once we get you situated with Mail2 and have all your email contacts in Mail2 and synchronized between Mail2 and Tessitura, we start sending campaigns out. You're going to get some contacts that bounce, and that's this next column right here, bounce. Let's talk about bounces a little bit here. There's really two types of bounces. There are temporary bounces and there are what we call permanent or hard bounces. A temporary bounce or a soft bounce is when you send out an email campaign from Mail2, we get a signal back from the email service provider that says something maybe like, this mailbox is currently full, it's not accepting any more email, the email server was down temporarily, whatever it might be. Whenever we get those soft bounces back, we record them in Mail2, and it takes basically a string of 30 consecutive soft bounces, 6 soft bounces over the course of 5 campaigns in order for that soft bounce to become a hard bounce. It happens really, really infrequently. Matter of fact, I don't remember the last time I actually saw a soft bounce, string of soft bounces turn a contact into a hard bounce. Generally speaking, somebody cleans out their email box, the server comes back online, whatever it is, so the next time you send a campaign to that email address, it gets through, we get a delivery signal, it goes back to 0 in its count. So it just continues on after we actually get a delivery signal back. Or the other thing that happens with it, maybe that email address is being in the process of being deactivated and ultimately get hard bounces. So soft bounce, pretty much a long string of consecutive soft bounces before it gets marked to a hard bounce. Any questions on that?
Nope.
No, I understand.
Okay, cool. Hard bounce. Hard bounce, that's where we get a signal back from the email service provider that says this is no longer a good email address, or this was never a good email address, or something along that line. Basically, a hard bounce is fatal. And what we do is we immediately deactivate that email address, take it out of your active status, and move it over to the bounce column. You don't have to do anything with them. You're not built for them. Only your active contacts constitute your contact quota, and that determines your billing rate. But we just simply take it out of active status, we slide it over to the bounce column, and then we use that, we keep that as a permanent suppression in Mail2 going forward. And the reason being, one of the things that email service providers look at is how often you hard bounce or send hard bounce messages that come back to you. And that's part of the thing that determines your sender reputation as an email marketer. Spammers don't care that they hard bounce a lot of things, right? As a reputable email marketer, you have to be concerned with hard bounces and that you're not resending over and over to them. So that's why we simply deactivate them. We keep them in Mail2 as a permanent suppression so you don't keep sending to them. Make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, globally unsubscribed. Globally unsubscribed, this is an email address where the owner of that address has said, no, please do not send me any more email to this particular email address. It's a hard stop. Under no circumstances will Mail2 ever deploy an email to a globally unsubscribed email address. Just like hard balances, we take them out of your active total. You're not charged for them. We just keep them in mail2 as a permanent suppression going forward. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to clean them up. They just stay there. And that way you continue to respect that permanent opt-out request from the owner of that email address. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. On your punch list, what you'll see on there is at some point as you get up and running, obviously we want to pull all your contacts into mail2, and that's going to be your active, as well as the bounced and globally unsubscribed or opt-outs from your legacy email system. One of the CSV or Excel files that you'll create to do your initial imports, we're actually going to want to pull your bounced and globally unsubscribed contacts from your old system and import those into mail2 so we continue to respect those going forward. Okay?
Okay.
Do you help us do that, or we'll just do it?
What we'll do further downstream is you'll pull together basically all your contacts into CSV or Excel files, and I'll talk a little bit more about how we map those into mail2. But once you have those,
Explain how later.
What's
I'm saying you can explain how we do it later. I understand. We can wait for that. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a real simple flat file import. If you're moving contacts around with CSVs or Excel files today, it's going to be really similar to that. But yeah, I'll walk you through it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on kind of the basics of contacts so far? Okay.
No questions.
Let's go ahead and kind of go a little bit higher into the hierarchy of things here and talk about lists. And in particular, I'm going to talk about public and private lists to start out with. Lists. Lists are the things that control email opt-in and opt-out preferences. They are your patrons' choices when it comes to what they want to receive from you in terms of email marketing. There are public lists and private lists that control these opt-ins and opt-outs. So let's start with public lists. What's a public list? Very simply, a public list is a master list that is open to the public. Anybody can come to your website, and you have this in place today because I'm on it. I actually subscribed to your newsletter a while back on your legacy system. Public list is an opt-in list that is available to anybody. Anybody can come to your website, find a page or a form that they fill out to opt into your public lists, and they can start receiving email marketing. Mail2 provides that. We're going to talk more about that in detail here. But a public list oftentimes are things like your master newsletter list. Maybe it's like a special promotions list. Sometimes I see like donor opportunities set up to capture people that might be interested in receiving donor information. So there's a variety of public lists that you can make available to your patrons. I'm actually going to go here to Chicago Symphony Orchestra's website. CSO, longtime Mail2 organization, actually even a Lynch Interactive web client as well. Here's their see. My screen update on the GoToMeeting? Are you looking? Are you
Yeah.
seeing the Chicago Symphony Orchestra email subscription center?
It did, yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay,
you have
cool. That's why I'm asking, see if it actually refreshed. GoToMeeting looks like it's having all kinds of problems today. Okay, this is and I want you to take note of this funny little URL up here. clicks.schem1.com/signup, and then a variable on the end. Clicks.schem1, that's actually part of mail2. It's one of the domains that we use product. And this page is actually a hosted page that's part of the mail2 dashboard. You have one that's out there. When you set up your public list, it'll automatically populate and do styling on here. You can actually embed this in an iframe. This is Ruth Eckerd Hall down in Florida. Here's their email. This right here, this little frame, this is actually their clicks.schem1 iframe on their site. And then lastly, be able to do is also embed that on a TNU tab. And this is just a screen print of one Performing Arts Center in Madison, Wisconsin. This is actually their TNU tab, and the subscription center is embedded on their mailing list preferences tab within TNU. Once you have your public and private list set up, you have that option to embed it on TNU, link your site off to it, or embed it the things that's actually on your punch list to determine how you want to treat your subscription center. Okay? To kind of show how public lists relate to your subscription center steps, you're going to want to determine what your public list, your ongoing master opt-in preferences will be for your patrons that come to your website. And I'm just going to create a new public one. Lensic e-news list. And I'll put a description on here. Say, subscribe to receive our monthly newsletter and other promotional, something like that. All of your public and private list names, you're going to want to make them meaningful to anybody that comes to your website, because these will be patron-facing. To keep this as a single opt-in list, just a quick definition on a double opt-in. A double opt-in actually creates an extra step in the confirmation path for the patron. When they opt into one of your public, you can set up an email that will automatically deploy to them when they hit the submit button, and then in there they have to click on a link to complete that opt-in. To tell you the truth, I don't see a lot of arts organizations use that. Organizations and get on their email marketing lists are doing so very purposefully, unlike email marketing for manufacturers or coupons or things like that. So I'm just going to make this a single opt-in list. And when I save that, I'm going to go to Contacts, Lists, Public. There it is. I just created it. There's no contacts, and it's an empty bucket. Visitors, sign up, and subscription center. And I view my subscription center. And this is that master bucket, oops, that I just created. So there it is, and people can come to my subscription center, wherever I put it on my web. In to those different public choices. Making sense so far?
Yes. Yep, totally.
Okay, cool. Public lists. Now I'm going to shift gears and talk about private lists. At the risk of sounding really flip, private lists are not open to the public. They don't show up on your public subscription center. However, they will show up on that in a second. Private lists are master lists that are set up by the organization so you can put contacts into them, and typically it's contacts that you have a special relationship with them. Season subscribers. Maybe you have a quarterly season subscriber newsletter, and you want to have a list of everybody, of all your season subscribers that quarterly newsletter to. It's one of the perks that they get. It's insider information, if you will, that you send to your subscriber patrons. Other examples might be donor lists. You name it. There's press lists are often considered private lists. Basically, where you want control over who gets onto that. Obviously, you don't just want anybody in the general public. You know, it's a special perk. So private lists, basically master lists that you set up and put your contacts into. Making sense? All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this kind of back, and I'm going to talk through sort of how these opt-ins work and how they ultimately relate to Tessitura. And I'm going to do this kind of through a sort of a use case, going to the CSO to see a concert. So I seek out CSO's website, and I find their email sign up, and I come to the subscription center, and I plug in my email addresses. Classical music, new music, popular artists as my opt-in choices. So I expect I'm going to receive information about those three types of information. Never been to the CSO before, so I don't have any record with them. There's no constituent record in Tessitura for me, nothing like that. So as far as Tessitura goes, I don't even exist in there. Who picks up these subscription preferences, these opt-ins, and immediately passes those over into Tessitura. And we place them on a local table that's installed as part of your setup. That email address exists in Tessitura today. And if it does, for some reason, we just simply update the email preferences on that particular email address. In my case, I don't have a constituent record yet. That email address isn't known in Tessitura yet. And what we do is we put it on a table with its opt-in preferences. We call it the orphan table. It actually does a lot of things, but we just kind of call it the orphan table. It sits on that orphan table, patiently waiting. And you're going to send email to me from mail2. You're going to send a newsletter to me from mail2. And eventually, I see something, and I go, oh, that's something I want to go see. Call up the box office. I set up an account online, or I set up a Tessitura account over the phone, or maybe even at the box office window, whatever it might be. And I use that very same we do whenever a new constituent record is created, and it uses an email address that's on that orphan table. We find it on the orphan table. We deactivate it there, and so you don't have to go in and do any kind of sync with that. It automatically gets moved over to my new rightful constituent record. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. on the public list. I have a constituent record in Tessitura, and I'm so happy with my performance that as I'm leaving the CSO, I decide I want. So I stop at the box office and I say, I would like to purchase a season subscription package, and the box office person helps me through that. And as they do that, they ask me, well, Mr. Voigt, since you're now into our special season subscriber newsletter list. And I go, sure, no problem. So through the Mail2 custom screen, which is in Tessitura, which we'll look at shortly, the box office person can put me of public lists and private lists with that one email address. Making sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. This is actually record in our little test environment, and this is where that transaction would happen, where that change would happen, where you know, I wanted to become a season subscriber. Person would pull up the Mail2 custom screen on the custom tab here, find my email address, and they would opt me into the subscriber private list. And they just click update, and I'd be good to go. A little bit more about the private list here in a second. I'm actually going to refresh it so I can show you. Each public list or private list in Mail2 is automatically going to populate over here on the Mail2 custom screen in Tessitura. So all that occurs in real time. So I could opt in, opt out of any of these office person, etc. Okay? Still making sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Now, a little bit further downstream, let's say I'm email from CSO, and I'm getting their regular monthly newsletter. I'm also getting the quarterly subscriber-only newsletter, and I determine, hey, that's probably a little too much. I know what I'm going to the CSO. I really like the quarterly newsletter. I don't want to get the other newsletter anymore. So in the bottom of every Mail2 campaign, every email, link. And when Mail2 sends out emails, any links that are in that email campaign are specific to the email address that receives it. So in my case, if I preferences link, it's going to bring me to a pre-populated dynamic version of the subscription center. When I click through, it's going to populate my email address. It's going to show me if I'm opted in or opted out to any of these public lists. Plus, that private list that I was added to will also show up on here and give me the option to opt out of that if I want. Into doing your imports to populate your contacts in Mail2 and sync those to Tessitura. So that's going to be really your next big takeaway, is determining what you want for those master buckets. Okay? All right, I'm going to talk about a couple other lists here briefly. internal list. This is one that you're going to want to take note of. Mostly because the term internal list is really vague. We can't think of what else we might call it. An internal list, by definition, is a single-use transactional type of list. And when you use these, they're really meant for customer service type information, show cancellations, traffic advisories, things like that, that are non-marketing in nature. They're really non-marketing in their intent. When you use an internal list, they basically get set up and they ignore any opt-in or opt-out preferences relative to your public or private list. It just, if you put an email address on an internal list, the only thing that respects is a hard bounce and a global unsubscribe. Other than that, you can send an email out to it. So that's why you only use those really for non-marketing purposes. Make sense?
Totally.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm actually going to talk about those in a little bit more detail, how you might pull those from Tessitura. So just keep that one in mind for a bit. And then lastly, test list. Test list is really it's just a list of your colleagues that review your email content. When we get to building and sending an email campaign, there's a test tab where you can send out tests to your colleagues. And rather than typing in 5 email addresses all the time, you can just send it to one test list. So very simple. Okay. What I want to do now is talk about, once you're up and running, once you have your public and private lists structure set up, once we import and map all your contacts into those different public and private buckets, eventually what you're going to want to do is import a segment of your Tessitura database into mail2 so you can send a targeted email campaign to it. Okay? Like say you want to look at purchase history on everybody that purchased a comedy ticket in the past or something like that, and you want to deploy a targeted email campaign promoting maybe a comedy show coming up. So are you familiar with Tessitura List Manager at all?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then in List Manager there's a radio button that sits on every list in List Manager. And right now it's probably labeled TMS, right?
It is.
Okay, cool. TMS, that's basically the old legacy email marketing system that was originally in Tessitura years ago. And all we do is we basically relabel and retask that radio button. So when that radio button is selected, that list manager list is exposed to mail2. So when I want to import a segment of Tessitura into mail2, I'm going to go to Tessitura integration up here in the upper right. I'm going to click on import. One caveat as I work through this piece, don't worry if this doesn't completely stick 100% today. Mostly I just need you to be aware of the use case for this, and further downstream, once we have your initial imports done and you're up and running on mail2, eventually when you want to do this for real, I definitely recommend doing a follow-up refresher session on this. We'll have opportunities to catch up on and do refreshers on a lot of things, and this one is an important one for once you're up and running. So just bear that in mind. Don't worry if this does not 100% stick today. Okay? So here is in step 1, it says select the list from list manager list. So every list that shows up in this dropdown has that TMS, or we can relabel that radio button to say mail2. As long as that radio button is selected, it's going to show up here in this drop down the mail2 side so we can pick it up. So I'm just going to pick up my comedy buyers list manager list. We don't care what extraction criteria you use to create your list. Once you save it to list manager and select that radio button, it's going to show up here.
That's
in
fantastic.
Step 2,
That's really cool.
I'm sorry?
I just said that's really fantastic.
Okay, cool. All right. In step 2, there's a lot of things going on here. So I'm going to kind of walk through some of the different use cases in here. You can see that you can create a new public list and a new private list through this interface. Generally speaking, you're not going to do that very often. When we do your initial setup of your master public and private list, a lot of times those just kind of stay the same over time. Sure, contacts will flow in and flow out, that type of thing. But for the most part, those master opt-in buckets pretty much stay the same for the duration, unless you add maybe like a new program or something like that, or a new type of email that you send out. So I'm not even going to do that right here. Typically what happens is this. What you do is you take that Tessitura List Manager list and associate it with one of your master opt-in lists, like your general newsletter list, for example. And that association ensures that you have permission to send email marketing to those email addresses on your list manager list. And the output of that association is called a saved search. That saved search is what ends up in mail2 with your contacts in it. So I might call this Lensic Comedy Promo 1. Okay? I'm going to skip this add new contacts. I'm going to come back to that later. I can have it send a little import summary to my email so I can see how many hard bounces are on there, how many global unsubscribes, if there are any duplicates or blank records in there. I'll show that on the on that opt-in source. It's an optional field in mail2 that I can update. Maybe something like import from Tessitura. In step 5, we give you the ability to do some additional filtering or apply different criteria here. A lot of times this criteria is already set up in your extraction criteria before you build your list, but we just give you another spot to do it down here. I'm actually just going to skip over it. You could do filtering on email purposes, e-address types. If you only wanted to bring primaries over, you could do that here. So it's just another place to do it in the process. In step 6, if you wanted to bring additional fields over from Tessitura other than the default fields, you can actually create an output set and map to that output set and bring those additional fields over. The default field that we bring over, and every time you do an import like this, obviously email address, you've got to bring over email address, first name, last name, and customer number. So if any of those need to be updated or are blank in mail2, when you do an import like this, it's just going to update those. So just to update the defaults. So I'm going to import this segment. And it says, there we go, there's 29 total email addresses in my little database here, and it brought those over. Now, if I go and create an email campaign, I'm just going to quickly create a standard campaign here. And I come to the Recipients tab where I define who is going to get this email campaign. I'm going to filter on Save Searches here in the upper right. There it is. There's that Lensic Comedy Promo 1, that saved search that I just created by pulling it over from Tessitura. And then I can mark the little paper airplane icon, and that becomes my send to list for this particular campaign. I can also use that as an exclusion if I wanted to. Let's say I'm sending out a broader promotion and I don't want to send that to people that have already purchased tickets. I can actually bring over a list manager list of everybody that has a ticket, bring it into mail2, and then use that as an exclusion so they don't get it. That's a real typical use case of bringing over a list manager list into mail2. Now, what I want to do is kind of show you with a little diagram that I have here what's going on there. I'm a visual learner, and this helped me come to understand what's going on with that. Can you see this little diagram I just pulled up? This little Visio bubble diagram.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's say in this little bubble right here, this is my list manager list. And let's say there's 1,000 email addresses on there that I scooped up in my list manager list. When we do that import and we associate it with my master public list, like my newsletter list, we basically take that list manager list and we hold it up against that master public list. And let's say there's 20,000 email addresses that are opted in to that public list. Therefore, they have given me permission to send email to them, right? If all 1,000 of those email addresses on my list manager list are, you can probably say it with me, are valid, are not hard bounced, are not globally unsubscribed, and are opted in to my master list here, all 1,000 will come through into that saved search that I deploy that targeted email campaign to. Making sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
What typically happens, though, is you'll end up with some that fall outside of that intersection. The ones that fall outside, you can say it with me, hard bounce, global unsubscribed, invalid, or, here's the kicker, they opted out. They expressly opted out of that master list, or they were never in it in the first place. Okay? So it's really filtering out those things and making sure that the leftover ones, the ones that come through into the saved search, you have permission to email. Make sense?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Okay, cool. If that's clicking with you, you're doing really good. Because that's as a very flexible third-generation email marketing system, that conceptually is often where people go, oh, how does that work? So again, like I said, if it doesn't 100% stick, no big deal. We're going to come back to it. We're going to talk through it when you have a real need for it. Okay. Now, I'm actually going to go back and to the import again. And we'll select my same list manager list. This time, I'm going to associate it with my general newsletter list. And I'm going to call it Lensic Comedy Promo 2. Now, add new contacts. This checkbox will actually do a refresh of that list. So if you have any email addresses on your list manager list that were never opted into that general newsletter list in the first place, this will add them in. And just a note here, contacts that previously opted out will not be added back in. So if somebody expressly opted out of that general newsletter list, it won't put them back in if they're on there, and they'll be excluded from your saved search. But any sort of net new or new to file email addresses that you want to put in that general newsletter list, this would do it. And you could then just, do the other stuff that's on here, do a, an import summary, opt-in source, and just complete the import. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. So it's kind of a little mini refresh. Question for you. If I were to associate this comedy buyers list with this new Lensic e-news public list, how many contacts would I end up with in my saved search if I didn't check this box?
Any contacts to just 0.
Zero. You're absolutely right, because there's no contacts in it yet, right? We didn't put any contacts in it when we set up that bucket. But if I were to do this, I'm now going to add 20 contacts, 20 new contacts into that public list. Make sense?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Questions on that at all? And I'm actually going to go to my recipients tab. There's my promo 2. You can see it's got a little date and time stamp on it. then, since I checked that Add Contacts checkbox on that import, look, I was actually 25. There must be some hard bounces or global unsubscribes. So I actually opted in 25 contacts into that public list when I did that. Pretty cool, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
Questions on that at all? The last thing I want to touch on here, actually there's two things I want to touch on here. I can also have that association look at all my public and private lists so I can actually cast the net wider. When you do that, it's probably unlikely that you're ever going to add new contacts to all of your public and private lists at once, so you probably wouldn't ever check that. But basically, what that's looking for is that you have permission to email all of the contacts in your list manager list based on some type of opt-in. Then lastly, right here, internal or temporary list. If you need to, let's say you have ticket buyers for a certain show, you need to send out a cancellation, show change, traffic advisory, some type of customer service information. This is where you would plug in something like show change, something like that. And when you pull this over, it's the only thing that will be suppressed out are going to be the global unsubscribes and the hard bounces. So that's the way that you can ensure that you're sending that customer service information with that internal list. I'm just going to close out of that. So go to my campaign here. Filter on lists. There's like a traffic advisory show cancellation. You just determine that one and you'd send to it. Now, when it comes to sending like to your entire list, you don't have to go through that import. That's only when you want to hit a segment of your Tessitura database. If I just wanted to send my monthly newsletter out, I can just click my general newsletter list straight away. Or if I were doing like my my donors list or my season subscriber quarterly newsletter, I can select that straight away. Now, here's a key piece. When it comes to private lists that are set up like subscribers that are based on constituency, out of the box, this is not a dynamic sync between Tessitura and mail2. The reason being is that no organization does those the same way, okay, and no two organizations are alike. So out of the box, if you have a private subscribers list, and there's always subscribers that are lapsing, there's always new ones coming on, what you would need to do if you wanted to update this, to pull off lapsed ones and add the new ones in, you would actually want to run a CSV file and import that in and update this through that type of manual process, okay? That's out of the box.
John, I'm just going to let you know that we don't actually do subscriptions through the Lensic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we don't really have subscribers in a traditional sense.
Oh, I did not know that. Well, interesting.
It's because we sell tickets to...
But if we wanted to send it like to a group of donors, we'd have to update the donor list every time.
Yeah,
right?
let's use the donor example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Same example for a donor. You would basically have to update that. However, coming out very shortly, well, for donors, you could actually, if you're importing using the import and then use that add context thing, that would refresh it. A lot of times, you're just adding donors in; they're never lapsing. I don't know that donors ever lapse, so they just unsubscribe or whatever. So you could actually refresh that donor list. However, let's say you wanted to have a dynamic way to keep that donor list up to date, so you didn't have to do like a refresh, a CSV import to refresh it, or use that add contacts function. Coming out very soon. It's in beta right now. It's a new feature that we're rolling out, and it's basically a type of report that you can set up in Tessitura that will map over to any particular list that you want. You could even do this with like a public list. If you wanted to find any new email addresses and just automatically opt in like in your general newsletter list, you can set this up and map it over so it automatically updates any given mail2 list on whatever cadence you select, hourly, daily, monthly, whatever. That feature is currently in beta. It's coming out of beta soon and will be ready for general release. You'll see emails about it. You'll see dashboards alerts on it in mail2. So just be aware that that's coming. And I also kind of make mention of that on your punch list, where it says determine what you want to do with kind of new to file email addresses. It's really getting at that type of thing. Do you want to use an auto opt-in feature is really what that line item is about. So keep that in mind and just understand that in the case of like private lists where you want that type of updating to occur, there's the manual way and then there's the auto opt-in way. Okay?
Okay.
All right. That's really kind of it on contacts and list management. The only other thing I want to close out on is just some other quick comments here on the mail2 custom screen that lives in Tessitura. The subscription center, that's obviously where patrons self-serve. And then the mail2 custom screen is where we serve the patron on their behalf, box office folks, etc. Anybody that manages email addresses, once you're up and running on mail2, will want to do so here on the mail2 custom screen. So they can enter in new email addresses. They can change the opt-in preferences on any of the existing email addresses. They can globally unsubscribe an email address here. They can also reactivate a globally unsubscribed email address as well. They can just pick one from here, and here's a reactivate button. They can go in, they can click that, and what this does, it deploys a little email campaign from mail2 called a reconfirmation campaign. Sends it to that email address, and there's a link in there where the patron actually clicks on that link to complete the reactivation process and take their email address out of globally unsubscribed status.
I have a question.
Yep.
So the box office, are they doing it in Tessitura or are they doing it in mail2?
In Tessitura, right here on the constituent record. Mm-hmm. Yeah, any constituent record that you look at, you pull up the custom tab, it will have the email addresses associated with it.
Got it. Okay, thanks. A little slow.
Yep. Not a problem. Then also, one other customer service tool on the custom screen here is this history button. What this history button does, it will pull up a list of all the email campaigns that have been sent to that particular email address. So if I'm a box office person and then somebody calls up and says, hey, this is what I saw, can you help explain this, or whatever it might be, I can actually pull up a copy of that email that the patron is referring to. Running a little slow here. Here we go. And I can have a more educated conversation looking at the same email that the patron is referring to. So, maybe they saw they saw 50% off. It was really $5 off or something like that. But this actually pulls up an archive copy so I can see what the patron is referring to. It also shows when it was sent, opens, clicks, that type of thing. There's also a resend button on there as well. So if the patron wants another copy of it, I can just click the resend button and mail2 will fire out another copy. On your punch list, there is a line item on there sometime before go live. What you'll want to do is make sure that everybody that would be using the custom screen for managing preferences for the patron is up to speed on it. Out on our support site, there's actually a PDF that you can download, like a little job aid, little 2-pager, that you can distribute to anybody that uses that'll be using the custom screen, and it just describes the 5 things that you can do on it. So there's a line item just to make sure that you remember to give everybody at least a heads up that things are coming and that they need to manage email preferences on the custom screen going forward. Questions on the custom screen at all?
remind me, you probably just said this, but you see the screen right now with all these how-to deals? Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Never mind.
Yep. This is the mail2 support site.
Hey, John, can I ask you to do us a huge favor, and will you send us all that link in an email just so that we don't lose it and we have it separate from other documentation?
Sure. How about this? I can drop it into the chat window on the GoToMeeting right now as well.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And then I'll save it and bookmark it.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you just go back to the screen in Tessitura again?
Sure thing. Okay. I don't think yours has been fully set up yet. I think we have to finish that up yet. Or did we do your technical? I don't remember. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think we did yet.
I don't think we've done anything.
I'll look on that. That's going to be one of our immediate next steps as well, is to make sure your integration is working. So, okay.
So
any other?
The box office rep would have to go to this page. Like it wouldn't remind them or anything like that, right? Like if they want to add
great
it,
question.
people want to
It actually does not remind them. However, you could put a dashboard or a header, constituent header message up there that does remind them. I'm not sure how to do that in Tessitura. I'm not really a Tessitura expert, but I know some organizations have done that when they've switched to mail2. They put a comment up on the header that says make sure to use the mail2 custom screen for adding email addresses. You can actually do it on the Contact Details tab too, and it switches over. But what the Contact Details tab doesn't have are the specific opt-in, opt-out preferences. And the reason being is that the Contact Details tab is when you put information in there, you're putting it at the constituent record level. And email preferences, opt-in, opt-out preferences are down at the e-address level, okay? So there's a bit of a disconnect there. So that's why we have a custom screen where you can manage each individual email address so it can have different preferences. Now, for example, maybe my wife's email address is on my constituent record, but she wants totally different opt-in, opt-out preferences than I do, okay? And you can't do that on the Contact Details tab.
Not to get into the weeds too much, but if it's done on the custom tab, if we ever decide to no longer work with mail2, wouldn't we lose that information and those email addresses, or no?
You would not lose the email addresses. You would lose the opt-in, opt-out preferences. However, if you decided to go to a different system, what we would do, and we've done this in the past, actually, University of Arizona, they were kind of forced off of Tessitura and off of mail2 because the whole university switched to Ticketmaster. We worked with them to basically pull out their contacts so they could remap them over to their new system.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, basically the mail2 custom screen would no longer work.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I hope you don't leave. I hope you're absolutely thrilled with us.
That would never be the preference, but what we have found with Tessitura is that customizations of any sort, we need to really be thoughtful of how we use them before we get into them because of the ramifications of getting them updated or dealing with them if we separate, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's always good to just ask. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Along that line, again, without getting too far in the weeds, the other thing that I want to mention, I mentioned kind of that auto update thing. The other new thing that's coming down the pipe, are you on version 12?
We are on version 12.0.3. We're getting ready to upgrade to 12.1 soon, I believe.
Gotcha. Cool. The other thing that you may want, we might want to circle back on this somewhere downstream, is using contact point purposes. Are you familiar with contact point purposes in version 12?
Yes.
Okay. Some organizations are using contact point purposes to line up with their public and private lists. And so basically you might have like a contact point purpose that is equal to your general newsletter list, or maybe your donors list, or something like that. And the integration then works two ways. Since contact point purposes can be set at the email address level, they can also map over to those opt-in, opt-out, public and private list preferences as well.
That would be great.
Yeah, it's something that you will want to kick around as you think about your public and private list structure.
Okay, I'll keep a note of that.
All right, cool. We only have a few organizations that have gone down that path, and it's really cool. It's really nice. We're going to see a lot more that are going to do it, so bear that in mind. All right?
Okay, got it.
All right, gang. Well, that's kind of the basics of contact management, list management, how all things kind of tie together in terms of email preferences, etc. Any broad questions before we move over to the other part of our session?
No.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Let's talk about the campaign building process. And this is something that you can definitely forge ahead into. What I want to do here is really just kind of do a refresh on what goes into setting up a campaign. And the idea here is that you'll get in, you'll start manipulating some of the templates that you have available to use, rebranding those, setting those up, setting the design standards on them, so you can start essentially building your own customized library of templates that you'll use to send out your email campaigns going forward. So if you have looked at the tutorial, online tutorial at all, what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on this place right here, this part 3 right here. We were kind of back here in part 2, and we touched a little bit on part 4. But right now, if you're going to go back to the tutorial, this is really covering a lot of what's in part 3. So I'm going to create a new campaign, and in mail2 terminology, campaign is just a fancy word for an email. And there's different types of email campaigns. We're going to create a standard campaign. A standard campaign is your normal marketing email. It's meant to send out promotional information, marketing information, transactional customer service information. It's a one-off email. There are a couple other types of emails listed in here. The middle two, triggered and recurring. These are types of automated campaigns. And I'll talk a little bit about those. To differentiate them from the Tessitura integrated scheduled campaigns, the triggered and recurring don't require a Tessitura integration. The scheduled campaigns up here in the Tessitura integration menu, these are things like your automated pre-show reminders, your post-show follow-ups, and any kind of custom campaigns that you trigger based on Tessitura data. We have a number of clients that aren't hooked up to Tessitura that use these types of automated campaigns. But we call the Tessitura integrated ones scheduled just to differentiate. So when you're talking about pre-show reminders, post-show follow-ups, we're going to come back. We'll have another training session on those further downstream when you're ready for them. We'll talk about those separately. But triggered campaigns don't require a Tessitura integration. The best example of a triggered campaign is somebody comes to your subscription center and they opt in to receive email from you. You can have mail2 deploy a welcome message. Thank you for subscribing. Here's what you can expect from us. Click here to manage your email preferences, whatever it might be. You can set that to go out, a minute after they hit the submit button, a week, a month, whatever you want it to be. So that's a triggered campaign. Recurring campaigns recur on some type of regular cadence, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever it might be. The best example of this that I've seen in the arts is Lincoln Center out in New York. They are not a Tessitura organization, but they are mail2 users. And on the first of every month, they have a calendar of events, a PDF a calendar of events that's on their website. And on the first of every month, they send out, so this is going out tomorrow. I'll get it tomorrow. We've already kind of gotten a look at who gets your gets this particular email campaign. And again, if you're just sending out to your your general newsletter listing, just select that straight away. I'm just going to do that. Or if you're sending to any of the saved searches that you select those. Brings me now to the Details tab. The Details tab is a lot of information, a lot of header information about the campaign. I'm going to give my campaign a name, and if you have a good naming convention for your email campaigns today, you probably just continue that into mail2. If you don't, what I definitely recommend is coming up with a good downstream. Once you have a whole bunch of campaigns in mail2, if you want to be able to identify those, see them in a list of campaigns so you can do like comparison reporting on them, come up with a good solid naming convention. I'm just going to newsletter for August. Subject line, I'm going to use my patented subject line, my spammy subject line, buy a ticket and get a free hat. This will illustrate something further downstream. Are things that populate by default off the general settings on your account, but you can change these on a campaign by campaign basis. Sometimes I see like education departments or development departments actually change like the sender's email address. You have the ability to do that. So maybe I want this to come from Chris and not from me, and maybe I want it to come from mail2 and not from Lynch2. So on a campaign by campaign basis, I can swap that out. Replies to your email marketing. I don't see it very often, but if you needed to receive replies, you can put in different replies to your name, reply to your email address, and you can also track those replies in reporting if you want. Add URL parameters. Are you familiar at all with using promotions in Tessitura?
We are to a certain extent. We haven't actually promoted anything to any records yet.
All right, cool. In a nutshell, there's actually an article out here on this very topic. It takes, if you wanted to be able to have promotions in out here using promotions in Tessitura, you do some setup on the Tessitura side to come up with that source number. And what you do here is you actually plug in that source number as part of a key value pair. It will append that key value pair on the back of all your links in your email campaign. So when somebody clicks through on it, it'll actually report back that source number. Just keep on that path. That article is out there and will walk you through that very same thing that I just stepped through here very quickly. So I'm just going to turn that off for now. Google Analytics tracking. Do you guys use Google Analytics on your website for tracking website? Cool. It literally takes about a minute and a half. This will be on your punch list to set up a Google, your integration to Google Analytics. It's actually under Settings and Integrations. There's a little wizard in there. And when you select this checkbox, Mail2 will try to make a title for a campaign that will pass into GA, that GA will set up in your GA dashboard, that will start gathering information on all the website traffic stuff that you can track, and it will attribute it to this particular email campaign. Same thing if you're doing like e-commerce. You do e-commerce tracking on your website. Your e-commerce this particular email, and then on a nightly batch basis, GA pushes the data it collects domains and are sending IP addresses. And we have a full-time deliverability team that works with a lot of the services for that authentication, that whitelisting stuff that we do in the background for you. One of those is sender ID. Another one is return path. DKIM, we do all that certification, and that team works very diligently to make sure you get good inbox replacement results. This authentication checkbox here is one part of that whole bigger picture. And there will actually be a line item on your punch list that says, have your network administrator update your SPF record. And there's actually a link to an article out on the support site that you can send to your network admin and have them do that. And if they do that, you don't ever have to check that box. So that will be mentioned on your punch list. So just be aware that this is, once that's done, you don't have to check this. If that's not done, you have to check it. It helps, basically. Facebook and Twitter auto post functions. I don't know if you currently integrate your email marketing with your Facebook wall, your Twitter feed for the Lensic, but if you wanted to, this is a little bit of a time saver. Rather than kind of sending out an email and then creating a separate post, you can have mail2 create a wall post or a tweet at the time of send. Generally, it's for only those types of emails that you want to have a broader reach with. It's very simple to set up Twitter and Facebook, the integration between those with mail2. Same deal like with GA. It's under integrations as well, little connection wizards if you want to use those. That'll be on your punch list as well. I'm just going to turn those off for now. Post online, that's an important one. Post online, anything that you want the box office or customer service folks to see when they go to that mail2 custom screen, and I was able to pull up a copy of that email, anything that you want to show up in that list, you want to post online here. So rule of thumb, you want the box office to see it, post online. View in browser, you don't need. Any questions on the details tab at all?
Nope.
Great, cool. Moving ahead. Mail2 asks me what type of content I want to create. I'm pretty sure your plan is to go down the template path, use our templates that are in the system and brand those. Just a question. I do have a handful of organizations that have people on staff that build email campaigns like in Dreamweaver or Microsoft Front Page, things like that. Do you do any of that today?
We don't. We might,
okay.
Sure yet, we'll probably do what you said and customize one of your templates, or we might have our designer do something. I'm not sure yet. But anyway, we do not
cool.
do what you just asked. Yeah.
All right, cool. Copy and paste. Basically, if you ever go that route, it's really simple to just bring in HTML code from those other types of systems. Just be aware that it's there. So I'm going to go on the template path. When you select template, the first view you get is this view. And where you're going to want to focus your attention in here is in these 10 templates at the top. These are our mobile optimized or our responsive design templates. They're our newest templates. That responsive design, if you have a responsive design template and maybe it has multiple columns on it, when somebody opens that and views it on a like a mobile device, iPhone, a Droid, whatever it might be, it will actually restack the template. So these multi-column areas will turn into one long contiguous column. So the user can just scroll right through it, doesn't have to scroll left and right to view the entire width of the email. It actually condenses it down, modifies the images, like the header image, shrinks that down so it fits the size of the screen, etc. Lots of different options here. So what I would recommend is go through, take a look at what's available under these mobile optimized templates. Maybe compare that to what you send out today for existing campaigns, and maybe go like, oh, okay, the one column, we can use that for single show promos, or maybe our newsletter is a multi-column layout, whatever it might be. There we go. Why is my network misbehaving so badly? Classic templates, these are basically the same layouts. They're just not responsive design. You can look at them if you want. They're the same layouts. Publisher templates, they're not responsive design. And then lastly, the My Templates area of your template library is where when you take a template, you modify it, you get it branded, you can actually take a snapshot. There's a Save As Template function that I'll show you here in a bit that allows you to save, allows you to save email campaigns that you create into the template library so you can reuse them over and over again. It basically takes a snapshot of your email campaign and turns it back into a template. Kind of like, save template as in Word, if you've ever used that function.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to click off this here. Let's see if I can't get that to reload. My temperamental network connection today, it's making me crazy. All right. There we go. I'm going to grab this 1, 2, 3 column template just because it has a lot of stuff to play with. And here we go. I'm on the Content tab, and there's 2 sub-tabs, if you will. There's the Design tab and the Text tab. I'll talk about the Text tab in a bit. And there's 2 modes within the Design tab. There's the desktop webmail mode, and then there's also the mobile mode. You will do the bulk of your work in the desktop webmail version of this. And then you would flip over to the mobile version to maybe make some tweaks to make sure that your mobile version looks good. But this is where you're going to do the bulk of your work on a template. I'm going to start out by putting some images in here. All of our templates are built with placeholders for both images and text, and they're all clickable. You can see as I hover over the different text areas, I get that green outline. I'm going to start by dropping a header image in here. When I click on that header image, it opens up this dialog box. And this is my gateway into my hosted content library. And we start you out with a 50 megabyte hosted content library that you can set up folders in, upload your images to. So what I recommend is, you can also get at it up in here. What I recommend is setting up your folder structure now before you get a lot of images uploaded in there. It's just easier to organize. Now come up with a standard folder structure. Maybe it's something that similar to something that you do already today. One of the best things I've seen is kind of arranging images by season. So ultimately, if you're downstream, 2 or 3 years into our relationship, so you've decided to stay on with Mail2 for a long time, ultimately you're going to want to start killing some of the old images in there, and they're easier to get rid of if they're kind of in date order rather than some other type of order. So I'm going to click on this link at the top to take me into the hosted content library. Here I can create folders. It's a basic uploader. I've got some folders set up here. When it comes to email, the width of images is the important dimension. Length can be variable, especially when you're dealing with responsive design templates, responsive design emails. The width of images is important. You're going to want to cut your images to the width that's recommended by the template. So in the case of a header, 600 pixels wide. And I can put in a URL if I want that to link to a page on my site, an image description, and I can click Insert, and it's going to drop that header in there. 600 pixels wide. Length can be variable. The other thing with your images, we always recommend 72 dpi as the resolution, and that's mostly for the speed of loading when somebody opens your email. You don't want to take a big full-size multi-megabyte image and just kind of shrink it down, manually kind of force it into the template. A, it can throw off the responsive design elements, and B, it can take a long time to load. So size things according to the width. Same deal here. I can just repeat that. Go to my content library. Grab one more image here. grab King Lear because I know he looks good and frazzled. Drop King Lear in there. That's how I look when my network is acting up. I can also put images inside of a text block as well. So maybe I want to do like a button in here. Click on here. And maybe I got a pinkish red buy tickets button. Everybody knows that a red buy tickets button works better than a blue one, right? Drop that in. I can create links on this. This is our WYSIWYG editor, which is an acronym for what you see is what you get, which is kind of a silly acronym. It's mostly true. It's basically a front-end user interface that codes up HTML on the backside. You can do a lot of different things in here, obviously, when it comes to formatting text, creating bulleted lists, all that kind of stuff. You can actually tweak the HTML code behind the scenes if you wanted to with the HTML function here. Special characters, horizontal rules, all kinds of stuff. This token drop-down menu, if you wanted to do like personalization, mail merge type stuff, you can do that. So if I drop in something like first name, I can do some personalization here, that type of stuff. And really, it's a matter of just editing the content that you need to put in these different areas. A word of caution, though, if you are ever copying from another electronic source, such as a web page, another email, a PDF, whatever it might be, you've got to be careful doing that. You probably know this already. But what I recommend is copying in small chunks, a paragraph or less, scrubbing through Notepad, and then dropping in my new content from another source. So maybe I just want this string of text. I'm just going to take this string without a hard return in it. I'm going to drop it in, paste it into Notepad, make sure there's no hard returns because that's where formatting exists. I'm going to cut that out of Notepad. And when it comes to the destination, I like to place it inside of a paragraph that's already formatted. So it's going to inherit the destination formatting. And then I can just take stuff away around it. That will prevent you from looking like King Lear in the background because that paste action from other electronic sources can introduce a whole lot of formatting from your source. So that's a big key to not going crazy and trying to keep formatting consistent in your email campaigns. You can add as many content regions as you need to within these columns. So it's really about adding and subtracting. You can take things out. You can turn off placeholders. You can delete out subsections if you want. You can get rid of whole sections if you want. So it's really about looking at those different layouts and then adding and subtracting. Making sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then over here on this side, this here are the bulk formatting controls that control everything within the template. All our templates have CSS, cascading style sheets, that are at work behind the scenes. And you can do things like change page backgrounds, the top bar, font faces, even the vertical line colors between columns. It's all defined in here, and I'll literally just work my way straight down. So let's say I'm like matching link colors and text colors from a website. I can do that all here. I click on that. It brings up a color picker. If I know the hexadecimal color that I want to match, I can paste it in there and update it, change the font face. So literally, you march right straight down the column. Action link. The action link are actually these little guys right here. You can use these if you want to create like read more links or whatever types of text you want to put on them. You can just overtype the text and paste in the URL where you want to direct those. These read more links actually come into play on the mobile version. So I'm going to actually flip over to another version of this. and jump down here, go to the Content tab. That's what I've done here, is I've taken this template, I've added in a whole bunch, I've changed all the font faces, background colors. I basically did a color match to Stratford Festival's website. Just looked at their website, grabbed images, grabbed content, and dropped it in. And it was all done using the different repeater regions and the different styling over here on this side. Now when I flip over to the mobile view, there's the mobile view. And the action link on the mobile view actually becomes this little button that becomes a better target for somebody thumbing through on an iPhone so they can hit that. And you can format that, change the color, the radiusing, and all that stuff on there. The mobile view and the desktop view are not mutually exclusive. They are interrelated. So if you make a change here, it's going to get reflected back on the desktop version. The whole idea is that you build in the desktop version and then just double check to make sure that the mobile version is in good shape. You know, if you need to change something like the size of the text on the action link, or how the images fall in relationship to the column, you can do that all here just to make sure that your mobile view looks good. Making sense?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up here, and we'll run a little bit over. We're almost done now. I'm going to just click on Save and Next and move us along the process. You can just you can skip around the different tabs, but using the Save and Next button is just going to move you on. Notice that I move from the Design tab, I'm now to the Text tab, and this field is blank. And Mail2 is telling me this little score up here is going to render here. This is called our MQS, or Message Quality Score. And it gives you feedback on things about your campaign. And here's picking up on my spammy subject line. So I can go in and I can make a change to my subject line, and I can bring my score up 9 points. It also took off a point for the exclamation point, the word free, so I can go change that and bring my score up. This one here, message does not have a text-only version. It's actually a CAN spam requirement to have a text-only version that goes out with your HTML version. And it's not so much for the 2 people on the planet that are still reading text-only emails. It's really so spam filters can see the nature of your content. And we make that very easy to create that text version. All you do is just click this Update Text Version button, and it's going to render a reasonable version of it. You can go in and clean it up and you know, make it look nice if you want. I generally only do that right before I send, and I don't spend a lot of time doing it. So I just clean it up, and notice my score popped up to 90, and I can click Save and Next. Brings me over to the Preview tab, and there's 3 different preview modes. It's going to give you a preview of the desktop view. It's going to give you a preview in the mobile mode. It actually has 2 simulated mobile devices, an iPhone and a Android. And a preview of the text version, yay. When you want to send tests to yourself or to your colleagues, you come to the Testing tab. And you can plug in 1 email address per line. And I'll just send a test to myself here quick. If I want to send multiple, just add a line. If I have a test list set up for my reviewers, I can just grab that. I can put a little note at the top. Please check all links today. Love, JB. And when that arrives in my reviewer's inbox, they'll see that note appended at the top of the campaign. They'll also see a test number appended on the subject, so they know they're looking at a test version and not a live version. And there's also a little report that renders so you make sure that got delivered, that they opened it, and they actually checked all the links. Inbox analysis, just very quickly, this is an add-on feature that we can set up for you if you're interested. It's like $15 for 3 tests. But basically in a startup mode, it can be handy to see how your email campaigns are rendering on about 30, 35 different email clients, different versions of Outlook. How does it look in Gmail? How does it look in Yahoo Mail, AOL? How does it look on various mobile devices? And it gives you full-size screenshots of all how your campaign is rendering. Again, it's not required to do this, but it can be helpful, and also it runs it through a number of spam filters. So in a startup mode, when you want to make sure that your campaigns are looking good, you can buy a few of those and see how it goes. When you are ready to send out your campaign, you go to the sender schedule screen, and this is where you can get one last proof of it. If you're doing any type of mail merge type tokens, it actually will sample a random email address from your send to list, and it'll render that dynamic mail merge content, and you can refresh that to have it grab another random sample. You can send it later, you can send it now, and put it on its merry way. So that's kind of the whole process from end to end. Questions on that at all?
No, I think that was a good overview until we get in there and get some hands-on.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that I forgot to mention when I was on here is this function right here, Save Template As. When you have a finished product that you know you're going to reuse over and over again, that Save Template As function will take a snapshot of this and put it into your template library. So when you come in and create a new campaign the next time, you can grab that version and start from there. Okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right, gang. Well, that's kind of it for this session. Next steps, we talked about coming up with your public and private list structure. We want to set those up, and so we can move ahead with doing your initial imports. Want you to dive in and start working with templates, manipulating what's available there to see if it works for what you're sending today. Save it off in your template library. If you get close to a finished product, you can reuse it. Beyond that, I need to check on where we're at with your integration, and I will update your punch list, and I'll send that over to you, Diana, and we'll circle back on the to-dos on there as we proceed.
Okay, thanks a lot, John.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a good day. If you have any questions as you're moving ahead, feel free to email me, and I will be in touch as we move on.
Got it. Okay.